Hi. What is NITE? Well, a lot of people like to give explanations that have certain details, and people have their own ways of explaining things. But I thought I would give you my point of view based on my experience. NITE is essentially the INTJ, the strategist, so called strategist. Imagine it like this. For starters, let's look at introverted intuition. I was riding my bike earlier, and I noticed when I first start riding, I'm just sort of out of it. Okay. I start riding my bike, and I start picking up on the shadows around me and the lights because everything's blazing by you. When you're in a car, it's too fast, but when you're in a bike, you start pulling in on all this information. There's cracks in the road, bumps in the road, rocks, glass, cars driving by, grass. And at first, I'm not really in it, but after about 10 to 15 minutes of biking, I start to really pull together the grass and the cracks, and it just kind of all gels into one thing, and my mind just kind of knows what to do. In psychology, they call this the flow state, but I would also say this is what introverted intuition does, is it pulls information from your environment or from ideas in your head, and it pairs them down into a continuous one-by-one flow. And so when I'm biking, what happens is I get into this state where I'm like doing these crazy twists and turns and tricks just in the moment without thinking about it, and I just kind of know what to do. Okay. That's the first thing. Now, extroverted thinking. Essentially what that is you're looking at your own values and you're trying to see what's going to be effective, the most practical thing to do to fulfill those values. So essentially what that means is that what the INTJ does is they have a set of ideas. Okay, so imagine that you've just researched 20 different houses you could potentially live in. What the INTJ will do is they'll just kind of know what to research for next, and they'll be deciding what to research for and how to research based on what comes into their mind, what their mind pairs down to focus on, introverted intuition. And then they'll decide based on practicality first. Whereas other types would probably focus more on, does this feel right for introverted feeling dominant people? Or does this fit coherently with my internal understanding of absolute truth that will apply consistently across everyone? Like everyone would agree that's true. Like not necessarily everyone would agree it's true, but everyone feels good about it. And so on and so forth for other permutations of the human condition. That's really the gist of it. Just understanding, just NITE, paring down to what's essential to you, one thing at a time, and doing what's practical. Now, to illustrate this, I have a friend who is an INTJ, and I like to ask him questions like, how do you think? How do you do this? How do you do that? And then I ask other people of different types to try to help separate out what's going on there. And what he told me is that he takes in information and his mind just kind of naturally bubbles up with information, and then he judges it based on what he wants. So he's like trying to plan and strategize, hence the strategist. And I don't tell him he's an INTJ. I think that's called the Hawthorne effect. If you tell someone that you're testing them for something, they'll change their behavior, and so it's not accurate. He told me that he does things one at a time. Like if I tell him a bunch of ideas in a conversation, for example, like I'm very tangential, I'll go all over the place. He will like pare down and just give me a really quick gist answer. That's one thing I love about introverted intuition. If I give them a bunch of ideas, they just kind of give me a focused answer. And it's really, really effective. It's really cool to have conversations with these people. It's synergistic is what I would say. It's really interesting stuff, all this stuff when you think about it. Yeah. Hopefully my explanation was clear. If you have your own thoughts or you disagree, feel free to let me know. And I will be back soon. Goodbye.